This is how we took a client from 200 to 500 leads a month while doubling their ROAS with Google Ads. Today, I'm going to walk you through a strategy around paid search, organic search, and here's what I'm betting on around AI search. So stay tuned.
Basically, Niklas, you 2x ROAS on your clients' campaigns while 2.5xing their number of leads and keeping the cost per lead basically at the same level. So would you mind elaborating a little bit more about the entire story behind it?
Of course, sure. So the client we were working with, they basically have a subscription model in the music industry where you can learn any music instrument or can learn singing online. And so they were somehow hitting a glass ceiling with their search ads, so primarily Google ads, and they had a hard time figuring out what they have to tweak in the account and where to look at and if they had to exclude keywords, etc. And we basically said to them, hey, the one thing you have to do is stop only focusing on the account. You have to look beyond the click, and beyond the click
Right.
for us meant specifically looking at the landing pages, because there are so many companies still that are just driving traffic to their homepage, and it's
Yeah.
such a pity because you can do really cool things if you focus on the landing page. And this was for us one key aspect where we said, hey, we have to fully optimize the landing pages, we have to create a range of new landing pages, and we have to use personalization.
If you want to get the same results as Niklas, head over to the link in the description below and get yourself an extended 30-day free trial. How did that look like? How did that increasing the range and implementing personalization? What's the practical implementation for someone who's maybe not that adept at conversion rate optimization for search ads?
So first, you always have to start with the customer. So we ask ourselves, okay, what do the customers really care about? Because when we look at the landing page, we always think about it from a perspective of sales psychology. Because in the end, we have to take someone that might not know too much about the offer we try to convince them on, and basically within a very short period of time convince them to take the next step, which usually is, at least in our lead gen cases, to get them to opt in with their personal details, email address, maybe even phone number, which can be quite a stretch if they do not know the brand in any way. And so we identified the key points that are basically things the customer care about, stuff that they might have a frustration about. Sometimes I like to say also within our agency, if we know what our competitors are doing badly and we just turn that around, and what our
Right.
potential customers are frustrated about, and we just clearly articulate to them that the experience with us will not lead to these exact frustrations, we already have them halfway sold. And this is something,
And
so I
what's
think
the impact of, sorry, on that exact point with
yeah.
like actually discovering what are their pay points? So we're assuming we're in a situation that the visitors are as cold as you get, right? They don't know the brand and you need to get some information out of them.
Yeah.
So what would you say, what's been your experience seeing this approach where you're really diving into these pain points versus just asking for their input details, for their email or other
Yeah.
data?
You mean in terms of quantifiable results?
Yes, the
Yeah, I
impact on
think,
business by whatever metric you like.
yeah. I think you can just, I mean, it's a ballpark, but you can basically expect to double your conversion rate. Because
Double.
in the
Oh wow.
end, I mean, it will depend, but it's always a matter of what are you currently working with. But, sometimes, for example, in B2B, if you visit a website, so this customer was obviously B2C, but in B2B, I know a lot of people know this. You go to a website and you don't know what they're really doing because the communication is so unclear. And I think if you get clear instead of being clever, and you really speak the language of your customer, and you're able to articulate their frustrations, make them feel heard, and then also, so heard, not HURT, but heard, like you hear their pain
Yeah,
points.
heard. Yeah.
Just to be clear on that. Um, and if you then, like, it's always about a transformation, you have to show someone, and also in sales, it's always about that. You have to identify the status quo someone is in, and you have to paint a picture of a future, and then you are the bridge. So let's imagine it for this client. It's basically you have already tried singing schools. It's hard for you to get it into your weekly routine because you have a full-time job. Maybe you have to take care of kids, whatever. And but you have this deep feeling of, I want to share my passion and I want to sing, and then the future is, imagine yourself singing all your favorite songs, not only in the car or in the shower, but with someone who genuinely shares your passion. And then our customer, for example, in this particular case, is basically the bridge. And this is something, it's just a very, very simple example, but you can always think about it. Um, there's a point A where your customer currently is at, and there's a point B where you want to bring them, and you have to be clear about the transformational story and about the bridge you're building for them.
That's basically you explaining the entire sales process just put into basically a
Yeah,
file of different pages, right?
yeah,
That's super useful though. Like for someone who was in a similar situation, right? Just they
yeah,
had some offering and they would always go with the standard B2B or even B2C way, right? Which is put up a website, get a few different pages, and
yeah,
possibly start driving articles in a way that would get some more search engine optimization driven results. If we were to start at this status quo for many people who are not getting as many quality leads as they would like to,
yeah,
if you were to do this entire process wrong, so to not generate results, if you were to not generate
yeah.
results, how would you approach building their conversion funnel with
Yeah.
websites?
The first thing, getting it wrong, would probably be going to Squarespace, Wix.com, or whatever, going to
Right.
these type of old school page builders. This would probably be the first part. But the thing that
What's wrong with the old school page builders? I'm playing a bit of devil's advocate because obviously it's hosted on
yeah,
Perspective website. But I'm
yeah,
genuinely curious. Like, what's the experience like for you, for someone who assumingly work with these companies? Like, what's the
yeah.
experience like for you?
So most of them don't really have a marketing mindset built in. They try to make a potentially complicated process, so building a website, building a landing page, as simple as possible. But along the way, they lose like a lot of aspects, or they don't really care about a lot of aspects that you have to care about if you generally want to drive conversions. One aspect is, for example, mobile optimization. So most of the page builders out there were actually created desktop first. But even if we look at B2C, it's obvious, completely obvious, that mobile first is like a non-negotiable thing. But even in B2B, so I think one key hypothesis that I have is that B2B will over time eventually do the same transformations as B2C. So even people in B2B, we are seeing it already, will buy the same way that people in B2C buy. They will be more mobile. Obviously, if we are working in the office, for example, we might use our MacBook and we might be on the desktop, but we will more and more research on our mobile device. So this is, for example, one thing that I think is really cool about
Super
Perspective.
curious on this point, by the way. I'm super curious for people who are listening to this. You can drop in the comments below how many of you are actually listening on mobile versus on desktop. I'll be super curious to see if the hypothesis is also true for the very podcast that we're recording about.
Yeah,
Back to you. Let's
yeah.
continue.
Yeah, cool. So I think this is one thing. The other thing that I would get wrong is I would just look for a nice design template and then just try to fill the placeholders that are in there with my information, and then just stop with the process. So, and the point I want to make here is, you should not start by just taking a nice design template and plugging in your information, but you should start at scribbling out what your customers care about. So, the first thought experiment that you shouldn't do if you want to get it wrong, so we're getting a little bit
Yeah,
complicated
yeah.
here, is not asking yourself how a day in the life of your customer looks like. So if you cannot tell that, you probably don't know enough about your target audience. This is, I think, like it's super important.
If you don't know what we're talking about, to the people that are assumingly the ones that are trying to help, well,
Yeah,
who is your message to, right?
yeah, 100%. And I mean, people always overcomplicate it. I mean, talking to your customers. So what I'm doing, for example, for our agency, but also what I recommend to every client. But I mean, most of our clients are doing it, so it's good. But you can, for example, reach out to your customers on whatever channel they're on. So if they are on Instagram, then reach out to them on Instagram. If they're on LinkedIn, reach out to them on LinkedIn, whatever. But just generally have 5 to 10 conversations with potential customers and understand why they, for example, don't use a competitive product, why they use a competitive product, how their day looks like, what tools they're using, what other stuff they are doing in their life. Because I mean, we sometimes think about the product that we have, the features it has, and then we want to put it on a landing page and just show it to people and say, "Hey,
Mm.
please buy it." But this is a process. It can go right, but the chances that it will go wrong are much higher. And the only thing you can do to increase your chances is get to a level of like customer knowledge that feels a little scary. So you should actually feel like the NSA a little bit, then it's the right level.
NSA, to break it down to the broader audience.
NSA, National Security Agency. I mean, there
Oh,
was
national.
this
Okay,
big
okay,
topic
right, yeah,
about Edward Snowden. Everybody spied on,
yeah,
etc.
okay,
This is what
right.
I mean. Like, you have to be a
No,
little CIA.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just very popular, in our marketing world. We have
Yeah,
acronyms for basically anything
yeah,
under the sun. So that's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
just to clarify that. All right. So looking at it, how to do it wrong, how to almost ensure that you're going to fail or increase your chances of failure, basically would start with a funnel builder that's optimized for desktop, even for B2B. For B2C, obviously that's a guaranteed way. For B2B, increasingly more so.
Yeah.
Then you would not know what you're talking about when you're creating the message for your customers.
Yeah.
What would follow for that, to throw a third most important steps to ensure failure?
Talk about my features. So if I want to do
Talk
it
about
wrong,
more
I would just
features.
talk about the features. And I would like sometimes there's this weird thinking that things have to sound complicated or they have to sound sophisticated. But I think like what I like to do when I have marketing copy to write, I like to put it into ChatGPT or to Claude and then say, hey, please change this while keeping the same sense and information, but adapt it to 8th level reading grade. So basically
Hmm.
the reading level in 8th class. And the point here is that you want to ensure that everybody, no matter if they have an academic background or not, or whatever their knowledge level or their education level is, understands what you're talking about. Because if you cannot convey the benefit that you're having into a customer's life or their business or whatever the aspect is, that your product helps with, if you cannot articulate it simply and straightforward, you might have not fully understood what the whole thing is about. And this is key.
Just keep it simple. Very nice. So maybe to close the loop that we opened at the very beginning, which would be, okay, we've got these amazing results that you just generated for our clients in the music industry, if you or teaching music industry, if you could call so. Um, what did you do to avoid these steps and to actually ensure that they got the results that they did?
So first off, we obviously checked their Google Ads account. So we were working here with Google Ads, and we basically checked what are the key growth levers we have. Obviously, there was something in the account that we could do, but I don't want to focus on that too much. The key points were actually working on the landing pages, so actually setting up new landing pages for the different target groups, also making it specific. So if somebody is searching for singing lessons, you don't want to present to them singing lessons, guitar lessons, and piano lessons. You want to focus everything on singing lessons. It sounds super, super simple, but sometimes you want to show, like, I have this big product portfolio, but the person you're marketing to, they might just want to buy one simple thing. So this is one thing we did. And another thing is, depending on the industry you're in, there might be like different parameters on how people search. In our particular case, people were searching quite local. So they were searching, for example, singing lessons in a certain city. And what we did is we used Perspective and we used the personalization feature here. And we basically attached the the city that somebody is searching to the URL so that the headline on the landing page always included that city. So, for example, take singing lessons in Berlin, take singing lessons in Hamburg, whatsoever. And this sounds super simple, but already this like simple feature really spiked the conversion rate. And we have for other clients, we have replicated this approach um, also with Perspective, and then also if clients had different landing page tools, also with other tools. So obviously, this is like a fundamental thing that works. And of course, you can like you can build on that. You can build other personalized things, but the key part is here, and oftentimes personalization is used as a buzzword. The key
Yeah.
part is make your message as relevant as possible to the actual buyer journey your user is currently in. And in this particular case, it was the city, and this was like it was a big unlock.
And to get that city, because you obviously had to get it from somewhere, where did you get that information from for someone
Yeah,
looking a little bit more for implementation maybe in their own funnel?
yeah. So we basically had the local keywords in Google Ads. So we identified in the search terms that a lot of the search terms included cities. So we pivoted from just a broad match keyword or like basically broad targeting to specifically targeting keywords with the respective cities. And then for each and every keyword, you can attach a parameter to the final URL. It's basically final URL extension. So it means that if somebody's searching on Google and the ad is triggered based on the keyword singing lessons Berlin, based on the keyword singing lessons Hamburg, that the landing page URL has this suffix of the city name. And this is then passed to Perspective. And in Perspective, we use the personalization parameter feature to then include the city name to extract it from the URL. It's not a complicated process. It's just basically writing an ad and then
Right.
registering the variables, but then actually including the city name in the headline. So this is basically it's the whole secret sauce. And I mean, it sounds too simple now, and obviously it's not applicable to all cases out there, but there will always be things that you can personalize on the landing page. So think about a product with different industries. So let's make it super simple.
Yes.
I've seen it, for example, when I did a breakdown of Monday.com, this project management software. They started doing personalized landing pages around verticals and industries. So project management for agencies, project management for construction, project management for small businesses, etc. If you would just if people are searching for that, people are obviously also searching for project management software, but they also search for project management software with an industry. If you would just direct them to a generic project management software landing page, it would not be as specific compared to a landing page, even if it's just the headline and everything else is the same, where you find your industry represented in the headline. And this is just, you just have to look for it and you have to understand the concept behind it. And then you can apply it across a wide variety of industries and businesses.
I've got to say, Nicholas, that I do trust your breakdowns because I've seen your LinkedIn profile and it
Yeah,
basically
thanks so
went
much.
like astronomically viral with one of these posts. Like you got like 5,000 comments under one of your breakdown
Yeah.
posts from what I've been able to see. I think that was back, that was a resource in German, but what was it exactly that you were breaking down that people were so hungry for on LinkedIn? Because I assume
Yeah.
that's very related to what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, so I shared a lot of stuff on LinkedIn already. Some things were marketing assets, so Looker Studio templates, this free tool from Google where you can connect Google Ads data, Google Analytics data, Google Search Console data. From that, we actually also did premium templates that we sell for a small buck. So I don't want to advertise for this now.
Right,
If you
right.
feel like it provides value to you, you go check it out. Radyant Looker Studio templates. but you can also just go with the free templates, so no worries. But the breakdowns I did were basically cool companies, so primarily startups and scale-ups, something like Personio, Npal, Monday.com, Rippling. I recently did Quanto, which is a big, very successful French fintech. And what I do, because this is my profession, is I analyze their search marketing strategy. So basically everything from organic search, now also a little bit more including their AI search presence, their whole content strategy, and then obviously also the paid search part until the landing pages and what they're doing good on the landing pages. I think it's something that a lot of people just like to see because they know it takes some time to break that down. They like to have it all in one place. And basically it's always the same principle. You see this company that has obviously had great success in these channels, and you want to understand what they did, how they're doing it, and want to benchmark yourself against it.
Such a beautiful opening door. But all the things I gotta say, I'm seeing a lot of these posts on LinkedIn, and most of them are actually quite crap. It's just people like putting up some quick
Yeah.
guidelines with AI, not really well thought through. All the things that you gotta say is if you got 5,000 people opting in for knowledge and are actually providing these breakdowns to all these different companies, your average person who's just starting out or who's just getting into the weeds wouldn't be able to get the depth of knowledge that you have running Radyant for how many years right now?
Radyant as like an agency with people working alongside me, 6 years. But I actually started working as a freelancer already 12 years ago. So
12
right
years ago.
after finishing high school, I did some studies then along the way, but I never stopped. So it's a continuous journey for the last 12 years. And yeah, it's been quite a ride.
That's really interesting. And again, like you've been through the internet, through its I don't want to say like ups and downs, but through different stages that I was on, and we're definitely entering a different era right now than it was 10 years ago. So
Yeah.
before we get into it, I know it's on everybody's mind, like where are we going with LLM searches? Before we properly get into the LLM searches, which will be definitely an interesting part of the discussion with you, I would say one question that I'd love to ask you is how have you seen search engine optimization and search engine ads evolve over the last 12 years?
Let's start with the ads first. 12 years ago, there was very little automation. There was very little, if no, I mean, I would have to go back. It's hard to recall sometimes. No machine learning, no smart bidding, no AI optimized bidding stuff.
All manual bidding,
Yeah,
basically.
basically I think it
Wow.
was that we were starting to see automated bidding introduced, but it wasn't really what you were working with. So we were
Yep.
mostly working with manual bidding. And I mean today it's like it's not really imaginable how we're doing it. There was no PMax, there was no demand gen, etc. So it was basically search. It was keywords, it was ads, and then we were landing page. It was also much cheaper. So the CPCs over time have increased because the barrier to entry is basically significantly lower now. But with the lower barrier of entry comes, I think, this misconception that it's more easy to get results. So actually, I would say it's getting harder to get results because there are much more advertisers out there. The competition, like basically everybody can set up an account within a few minutes and start pushing out ads. And the thing is, the platform nudges you to use all sorts of automation features, which can be good if you know how to use them, but you can also waste enormous amounts of money, like with Broadmatch, with PMax. If you don't know how to use these tools, if you don't know how to set up conversion tracking, how to put guardrails within the account for the algorithm and for the AI, you can waste like thousands and thousands of euros. So this is a little bit my perspective on the shift within the ads sector.
So I hear you saying getting way more expensive. It's way less work than it used to be because of all the automations. And because of that, of how evolved this entire advertising platform is, it's also way easier to sink money in there.
Yeah. So And it's somehow the same as with AI. The barrier to entry in something like copywriting, for example, is lower, but you have to know what good looks like, and you have to know how to craft a good strategy. And the thing is, like, the tedious work in the middle might get less, but you should not confuse it with just less work, but you have to like move up the ladder to solving more complicated problems, to understanding the customer journey better, to understand how to orchestrate the marketing, to understand how to source the right audience research, to then eventually build better landing pages, craft better messaging. Maybe even, so if you're an agency, maybe even consult your clients on crafting better offers, so that they're actually getting better results based on that. So this is something that I just feel it's so important to convey. It might feel like it's getting easier and less work, but you should not stand still, but you should basically move up the ladder, solve more complex problems, and evolve more into strategy, audience research, etc. More holistic marketing understanding. This, in my opinion, super super critical.
From the perspective of an agency owner, and you've obviously been offering different types of services along the years, which one do you find is actually easier to sell to potential clients? A bit more in the weeds and actually managing the ads themselves, or going a little bit more upmarket and offering a more strategic approach?
Selling ads is significantly easier depending on the type of client, obviously, but generally speaking, because if you know how to do this, you can basically get someone results within hours or days, you know, because you have guaranteed distribution. If you work on SEO, if you work on content, even if you know the things that you have to work on to get quick results, and there are obviously things that you can do. It's not like I hate this mindset of SEO is something that needs 6 months to bring in results. It's just not true. But
How much does it need?
obviously you don't have guaranteed distribution, but with ads you pay for the distribution. But the caveat on the other hand is that if you turn off the ads, there's no more traffic, which is obviously different with organic marketing, at least something like organic search. With organic social, it might be a little bit different story, because the lifetime of an organic social post is, I mean, it's not months and years. It's a little bit different with YouTube. I think YouTube has this cool, unique opportunity of having content that is actually maybe 2 years, 3 years old, still getting distributed, still getting eyeballs on. But I think there's like a key
Right.
differentiation that you have to understand between ads and organic in that sense.
So maybe let's take a segue to that. So you said if it's not 180 days, which generally is, like, I'm not in the SEO space, but I've heard this
Yeah.
slogan left and right that, like, well, it's kind of like a, I think I saw a tweet somewhere. Someone posted that SEO is something that should be taught at monasteries because of just how much grind every single day it takes, and you're seeing very little results. But if you're saying it's not half a year, how much does it actually take to see results specifically with search engine?
Yeah.
Excluding YouTube for now.
So it always depends on the status quo that your website has. If you are starting with zero, then it might take like half a year for you to get decent business results, but still it's something that will bring in return every single month afterwards, also, even if you stop working on it. So you might have to do some maintenance work, etc., because over time, like if you don't refresh stuff and update stuff, it might fall off a cliff at some point. But if you have a website, so what we do, if we start, for example, working with a client that already has a certain level of traffic, what we do is we identify pages that are already bringing in results, but that are not ranking the spots that are like the top spots. So if you're talking now about Google, for example, the key question would be if for a certain keyword or a certain set of keywords, Google is showing an AI overview, you have to be included in that AI overview. If you're not included, you will see significantly less clicks. But if we get a page into this AI overviews, we can see results and improvement in results basically overnight, because the demand is already there. It's just basically moving up the ladder to a place where more users are seeing you. And the same goes with pages that are already getting traffic and maybe are already in good spots, but not converting well. It might be because the users that are primarily accessing these pages are more early in their customer journey. So they are not ready to basically opt in to your offer yet. What we then like to do is we like to craft lead magnets. And with lead magnets, I do not think about a 3-page white paper where you
Yeah.
basically gate the content you have on a blog post, but I'm talking about actually valuable stuff. So it could be super in-depth ebooks about certain things that people actually work with, or it could be what we did, for example, Looker Studio templates. So free templates that are based on tools that the target audience is already working with. So we have seen great success with free Miro templates or free Notion templates. Or also, for example, for one B2B SaaS client we worked with, we did a free Google Sheet template to manage your equipment. It's basically their software is equipment management, very sophisticated, but a lot of people are still working with pen and paper. And the stretch of going from pen and paper to sophisticated software it's quite a stretch. So we basically tried to bridge that with this Google Sheet template, and this has also worked quite well. And if you plug in that lead magnet and you already have traffic on that page, you will get leads overnight, basically. So this is just I think the key part here is it's a different mindset. It's more of a growth marketing mindset than the traditional SEO takes time, build up brand awareness, etc. mindset. There's some truth to this also, but we, like, coming from the startup space, coming from scale up space, we, if you want to coin it basically in one sentence, we stopped thinking like editors and started thinking like growth marketers. This is basically our whole mindset.
Very interesting insert as well with the lead magnets, them being of high quality as well, so
Yeah,
that
of
you
course.
basically get to convert the traffic, which is, funnily enough, that's bringing us back to where we started today, right? Which
Yeah.
is hey, if you want to get better results, just make sure that the people who are seeing you from their cold stage of awareness to actually being ready to buy, or not ready to buy, but at least fully aware of what you can actually offer. That just comes with providing free value. That's very interesting. So okay, so most companies could actually benefit from improving or optimizing, rather, because we're not building from scratch. We're optimizing their SEOs probably within weeks, if they're taking their best performing pages and doubling down on them, as well as taking those that get traffic and adding this additional step that helps with conversion. Would that be basically like an accurate breakdown of your process?
Yeah, it's a little bit like Hormozy, where he said, more, better, new. So if you have something that's working, double down on it, get more
Yeah.
out of it. If you have something that is like not really working, but working ish, then
Yeah.
try to do it better, and only then go to new. And this is like, if you want to really make SEO a key acquisition channel for your business, of course, you have to create a wide range of content over time to build up topical authority, to basically create this omnipresence effect. And this is a key part of a strategy. But if you're starting, and I think this is super important also for everybody that tries to get buy-in from leadership for SEO, you have to show results quickly, and you have to basically prove that you're able to bring incremental ROI. And if you bring incremental ROI, you will also then get the backup to basically build up everything that pays in on topical authority, that pays in on omnipresence, etc., to build it up over time. But you can't just say, hey, yeah, I will create a few blog posts, and then we just basically have to wait 12 months, and then we might get some leads from it. This has worked in the past, We have to be honest about that at some
Yep.
point, because nobody questioned this, but people are starting to question this more and more, and they are rightfully doing so. So we have to take a different approach, and yeah, this is our approach. I mean, others might have another approach, but for us, it's working quite well.
That is a very interesting approach. I'm just imagining right now. Definitely, there are people in the audience thinking like, well, even if I manage to get these incremental improvements, right, and show the
Yeah,
initial stages of the growth curve, will it not all be swept away with all the advancements with AI? And
yeah,
that's such a beautiful place to actually ask the question. Right now, today in 2025, what's the deal with search engine optimization versus large language models
yeah.
engine optimization?
So I think you have to look at it from that way. There is this new app or category of apps or websites, like let's say ChatGPT, but ChatGPT just as like the household brand name already for AI chatbots. And it's something that within a very short period of time is used by millions and millions and millions of users around the world. And we as marketers look at it and basically say, yeah, okay, job is done, there's no opportunity for us here. I think the absolute opposite is true. So it's a unique opportunity, probably like an opportunity when Facebook and Facebook groups, etc., became a marketing channel, or when Instagram came up and the first influencers basically saw the potential, or when Google, which is obviously a little bit longer ago, when Google became a thing. So we have this unique opportunity now to be included in these tools. But the problem is, and this is why it's so hard for everybody to basically translate something like an SEO strategy to still being relevant in the future. We thought as marketers at some point that generic glossary content and basically just remixing stuff that is already present on the internet dozens and dozens of times, that this is a marketing strategy, and it is not. And AI overviews on Google, ChatGPT, etc., they are rightfully taking this away. But there is a lot of opportunity around commercial search and transactional search, because people will still ask the internet, no matter if it's Google, if it's ChatGPT, etc., they will ask a hell lot of stuff. And they will probably even ask more, because the answers they're getting are getting better, and it's easier and more convenient for them. You don't have to go through 15 websites, etc., but you will get an answer that is somehow curated for you. But for us as marketers, there's a unique opportunity to be part of these curated answers. And in my opinion, the key part is to understand how your audience is using these tools, what they're doing with it, what they're asking them, and then differentiate between where is no opportunity for me to be part of the answer, because someone is just asking a very generic question like, is it better to drive traffic to the homepage or to a landing page? There will be no opportunity for us to show up there,
Right.
at least in a meaningful way. But if somebody's asking for specific strategies on how to improve lead gen campaigns for solar installation companies in the US, probably there will be an opportunity if you have very specific content, and if you have a certain level of presence, if you have a certain level of topical authority, etc., to be present there. And this is just one example, but we just have to better understand where is the opportunity to be part, where is a ChatGPT actually performing a live search, pulling in new data, where is an opportunity where somebody maybe sees an AI overview on Google but still clicks further down the website, and there are plenty of opportunities. So this is just a key question we have to ask ourselves.
And it's very early on. Like
Yeah,
it's like we're in the first, I guess we could still say months. I think a year ago, very few people used to actually perform their searches in ChatGPT or in any other any other AI model. Right now, I would say mostly, especially for like smaller things, as you said. So like a whole host of different topics are now becoming completely irrelevant because they're too generic. They can no longer place their brand on, hey, how do you actually perform this basic task? And it's
Yeah,
just like you'll see ClickUp, HubSpot, all of these pages with like massive brand authority, just like explaining super simple stuff, or like how to do your accounting. And you see an article from
yeah.
Jira, and it's like, why the hell would you even bother with that? But there's still opportunity, as you're saying, for like very more specifics, more niche down questions. And it's very early on. So I'm super curious. Have you already got it figured out where the LLM search engine is going? Are you comfortable sharing some of your early insights?
Yeah, sure. So it wouldn't be serious, or at least it wouldn't be honest to say we have it all figured out, but we are seeing a lot of stuffs, and I think we are at the frontier of this development. So I think the first key part is you have to understand where for a user basically gaining information is the end of a journey. And if gaining information is the end of a journey, your marketing opportunity will be very limited. And the key point is also you're seeing screenshots of HubSpot traffic going down, etc., significantly, and we are all very frightened. But the absolute minority of people dig through this, what's actually happening. And for HubSpot, for example, they have plenty of content that is something like 12 synonyms for saying, for example. This is content that they have
Yeah,
published
yeah,
in the
yeah,
past,
yeah.
and that this does not have any like future relevancy. I think it's obvious, but there is plenty of opportunity where people actually want to perform an action, where they want to either calculate something for themselves, where they want to maybe get a template for something, where they want to, I don't know, find a new software, where they want to achieve a certain task. And if you understand this really well, achieving a certain task, then you can basically reverse engineer from that. And stuff that we're, for example, looking at, there was, I think it was 5 to 6 weeks ago, there was a leak from Claude. So Claude from Anthropic, this AI chatbot that is primarily known for coding, but it's also super cool for all other creative tasks. And there was a leak about their system prompt, and in the system prompt you could like very precisely see what the developers from Anthropic tell Claude when to perform a web search. And
Mm.
you basically have clear categories where they should never search or where they should perform a live search. And live search is something like where fresh and new and updated data is either required or helps Claude to provide a more helpful answer. This could be stuff like industry benchmarks, like up to date industry benchmarks, like cost information, something like regulatory changes, etc. It's just a very small outlook on that. And this is something, as a marketer, you have to ask yourself, getting into the training data is one option, and it's quite hard. Everybody's talking about Reddit, etc., and obviously there is something to it, but being included in the training data is basically something where you can say you have to become a household brand for your industry. So, if Perspective, for example, wants to be known for landing page builders, if somebody is asking for a landing page builder in ChatGPT, etc., you have to become a household brand. So you have to be on the same level as an Unbounce and all these other tools. And the other path is basically understanding um, when will an AI chatbot trigger a live search, and how does this align with the stuff your audience is doing in this chatbot. And if you can find these sweet spots, then you have, with like basically all the so-called best practices, but like modern SEO practices, you have a very good chance that if you are in the top spots on Bing or on Google, that you are present when an AI chatbot is performing these live searches. So there's a lot here to dig deeper into, but the maybe simple point that I want to share with the audience is, try to ask yourself first, what is my audience actually doing? So what are they using Google for? What are they using ChatGPT, Claude, etc. for? What are they basically entering into? Because people will be using Google and will be using these tools for all kinds of stuff, and you have to understand it. And the second part is, not only try to understand how to get into the training data and focus on all this, let's say, Reddit, yada yada yada, but
Yep.
also understand where is opportunity to be included in these live searches, because it will be significantly easier for you to get into this.
Very interesting and very on one hand obvious. On the other hand, I would assume many people are hesitating just because they just haven't tried it yet and don't know how this is
Yeah,
going to work out. But you've seen SEO and generally any sort of keyword related searches and ads and traffic over the last decade. So like you've seen how things develop, and it all starts pretty much simple and it gets more complex as we go. So right now, as you're saying, your best bet, unless you're the HubSpot, unless you're the Jira, is to
yeah,
basically go after the live searches and understand when they're triggered. You can
yeah,
do some hacking around Reddit, or maybe even manage to jailbreak one of the LLMs and bet on being the undeniable result in your niche for the
yeah,
particular query that you want to ask. And look, Niklas, this is I love our conversation. By the way, it's super interesting. I think for people who aren't even in the search engine space that much, I think this could like shed a lot of light on the new things. So before we wrap it up in a few minutes, there's a few more things that I usually go with at the end of the podcast. And first of all, a quick series of rapid fire questions. So one line question and possibly one line answer. Shall we?
yeah. Let's go.
What's one Google Ads myth that I would like to kill?
Focusing only on the account.
Focusing only on the account. So what to focus on instead? Also in one
The
line.
post-click experience.
Post
Everything that
click
happens
experience.
after the click.
All right, back to conversion. Amazing. Another one. Best performance insight you learned the hard way.
There's no shortcut to understanding your audience.
No shortcut to understanding. Brilliant, brilliant. All right, something a little bit easier. Favorite tool in your tool stack right now doesn't need to be Perspective. Better it not be, because then will be a bit too much auto-suggestive here.
Zapier.
Zapier. All right, good old Zapier with all the automations.
I
And now,
prefer it over Make and N8N, to be honest.
no, it's so simple. It's just simple. If you, I've used both in the past. And like I get it. Unless you just like it, unless you like saving up the incremental cost on getting like the make automation slightly cheaper. It's like Zapier just is the number one, right? You're running your ads on Google, not on Bing, most likely. So it's kind of the sort of situation. And now we're getting into our closing ritual, which is every guest leaves a question around the future of marketing to the next guest, not knowing who they're going to be. So, off the recording, we'll actually ask you for your question. But right now, as the last question on this podcast, I'd love to ask you the question from the previous guest, which is if you could wave a magic wand and make one problem disappear for your business, but it would remain for your competitors, which one would you choose for the highest advantage?
Wow, that's not an easy one. Client acquisition. Because, in the end, if you think about acquisition is basically immediately connected to retention, at least for us. We could sell to a lot of businesses super easily, but we choose not to because we know that we can't bring the results that we need to actually stay with them, not only for a few months, but ideally for 2 years, 3 years, etc. So yeah, getting our pipeline filled as a magic wand with ICP leads and without all the efforts that it takes, because it's a lot of effort, and having this still being a problem for our competitors, this would be cool.
All right. Mr. Niklas Buschner of Radyant. Thank you so much for our conversation today, Niklas.
Thank you so much.